Welcome to Morning After CFFL edition, week 4. Coming to you after another exciting week in the CFFL. We'll see what happened. There was a lot of crazy action this week. A lot of guys kind of came out of nowhere and some surprise games this week. So let's take a look at the week that was in the CFFL. First of all, in the upset of the week, the Horn Dogs took down the Donkeys 73 to 41.5. Terrence Williams at 15.5 for the Horn Dogs. Reggie Wayne at 12.5 for the Donkeys. It was the Donkeys that were favored by 29.5 points, but instead lose by 31.5 points. The Garbage Men took down the Gargoyles in one of the key matchups this week, 80 to 73. Andrew Luck with another strong performance at 24.5 points. Randall Cobb at 18.5 as the Garbage Men take down the Gargoyles, thanks in also part to Eddie Royal's 2 touchdowns. The Badgers did not have as high a scoring week as previously, but still enough for a victory as they win 61 to 51.5 over the team LBM. Little Big Men had 14.5 points out of Colin Kaepernick, and the Badgers had 15 points out of Lamar Miller as he was the featured back this week and had a very good week. In Rogers We Trust took down the Cardinals 85.5 to 77. Jamal Charles and Matt Ryan combined for 40.5, while Matt Stafford and Steve Smith combined for 39. In Rogers We Trust had a big week. Also, we had a big week out of DeMarco Murray, of course, who had, I believe, 20 points. So a big week there out of his 3 guys that were enough to take down. Jamal Charles almost brought me back into the game, but it wasn't enough. 3 touchdowns. He needed a 4th one, and he came darn close to getting it. But no. Team Black Dingoes, Dino's Black Dingoes take down DK's Kongs 93.5 to 59. The Black Dingoes are 3-1. Kongs fall to 1-3. The couple straight year, the consecutive playoff appearances for the Kongs could be in trouble. Next week they face a very key game. Maybe a make or break game for the Kongs. Dan Bailey had 10 points, their only player in high points, in double digit points. Sorry. Aaron Rodgers, Larry Donnell, and Antonio Brown combined for 63 points for Black Dingoes. And finally this week, we had the Bruisers. 2-game win streak now as they take down the Bone Storm 93 to 59. Matt Asiata had 22.5 points. Jay Cutler had 14 for the Bone Storm. As you can tell from that, there was some surprise performances this week. Even a guy like Steve Smith, who's had some good years. I was a little surprising in how many points he actually had, the 2 touchdowns, and big week for a lot of unsung fantasy players. Player of the week, getting into that, is another player who hasn't had a good week in a while, and that was Eli Manning. Had 29 points, 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns passing, and 1 rushing touchdown. So a big day for Eli, and a bounce back performance. Walk of shame this week. Could have went to a couple different players. Could have went to LaShawn McCoy again since he didn't show up for another week. He had a half point. However, to change up the pace, we'll go to Megatron this week with 12 yards receiving and a half point total. Granted, it probably was due to the injury, but still a disappointing performance. Our cameraman over here is wrestling with the sideline reporter. So if that's what you hear, yes, this is a lot of our life now, the 2 of them wrestling. So, on to the gripe for the week. And Griff this week is griping about fantasy flukes. Last week's gripe was about the crappy season the stud running back ones are having so far. This week is dedicated to the fantasy trash that helped teams pull up victories this week. How about Eddie Royal's 18 points or Larry Donnell dropping 20.5 points? The ass man, Matt Asiata, put up 22.5 points and supposedly hasn't beaten any women or children. Don't tell me fantasy is all skill. How else could the best draft in the league be 1-3 so far? It's a good question, Griff. Yeah, it was a surprising week this week in fantasy. The best drafter in the league, though, I don't know, Griff. You've had one really good year. So, I don't know. We could say that about you, but there is a good amount of luck in there in fantasy. So, definitely, I don't think anyone will argue that there's no luck involved in fantasy. If they are, they're crazy, because there is a decent amount. As for Yobich, the free agent pickup of the week, Teddy Bridgewater, 317 yards passing, 1 rushing touchdown. Not a superstar, but a pretty good backup quarterback if someone needs for 1 week. And some upside with the talent around him, even without Peterson. Finally, this week, then, we'll get to the matchups ahead and take a look at the week ahead. Top matchup, Horn Dogs taking on the Badgers. Badgers at 4-0, taking on possibly their biggest threat so far, the 3-1 Horn Dogs. And then the other game, a battle of teams that are still fighting for their fantasy season. Kongs take on the Bone Storm. A battle of 1 and 3 teams. The loser is going to have a long road to get out of there to get to the playoffs, but you never know, they can still make it. Next week's show, we will start looking at the Going Deep section, where we're going to take a look at each division and best picks, worst picks, strengths of their team, where they need some help. We'll start that next week, and we'll cover that over the next 3 weeks. So that little teaser about ESPN on there, a show devoid of highlights and stats, will always have a whole bunch of fluff, maybe about a puff piece on maybe Chad's charity work or Bernie's, who knows what ESPN has. Maybe he helped a sick kid somewhere. So anyway, we won't have that, but we will have Going Deep next week. So everyone, thank you for tuning into the CFFL, and we'll see you next week.